Is it possible for a knife to be so bad that it actually becomes good again? We're going to think about that today on this episode of KniFAQ, number 248 of the series where I answer all your questions, sharp or dull. Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the KnifeCenter. Welcome to the show. Say hi to Thomas behind the camera.
Lozenge.
If you're new to this series, Thomas says random things and sometimes keeps me honest as we're going through your questions. And we get those questions from the comment section below these videos. So if you've got a question, think it could be good for a future episode, please drop it below. Today's first question comes from Pretentious Name 01. Just in case anyone had any pretensions of superseding Mr. Pretentious Name. Hello friends, I come seeking forgiveness. Let's see. I had forgotten my knife when going to work the other day. Shame. And I did not have a backup in the car to grab. I do have a Leatherman in the car for car-based emergency use, which you could certainly use in this case. But what I'm looking for is a real knife that when I have to use it, it reminds me, hey dummy, don't forget to bring your knife with you. Looking for something in the 3-ish inch range, folding or fixed, budget-ish, but steel shouldn't be important. After all, it's a punishment. Your words, not mine. While Swiss Army knives are good, almost all of their functionality would be wasted for me in my day-to-day. Well, you could just carry your Leatherman in that case, which you said you don't want. So it's kind of like a two-pronged, or two separate drivers of what's going to make a good knife here. First, you just want a good backup knife. So in my mind, when I'm thinking of that, I'm thinking of reliability and affordability as well. I mean, it's all well and good if you can afford to expend spend a lot of money on a very expensive knife that is going to be a backup. That's fine. But when I'm thinking of purchasing something for the specific use, in my opinion, you don't want to spend more than necessary, or I don't want to spend more than necessary on something that's might never actually even be used, right? If you've got that kind of disposable income though, go for it. So that's one, reliable and affordable, and able to be sat by itself for years without use potentially and still work. But the punishment aspect, okay, this is where it gets fun and more than just a simple, here's a good backup knife. So I'm looking for things that would make it a little less convenient for you to use than your typical knife. And we'll get to some examples here. And something that might be a little more embarrassing to use too. So I've got some bright colors here that I'm going for to kind of tackle that aspect. You mentioned fixed or folding. The first two things I thought of may in fact not be embarrassing enough or compromised enough or bad enough to be a good punishment. But I'm going to start with those anyway.
Maybe just for when you've been a little naughty.
Just a little naughty, yeah, sure. Maybe you didn't sharpen your knife well enough and the knife was dull. You can take those. Anyway, the Essie Zancudo and the Mora Eldris, both great options. A little bit on the smaller side on both. The thing with these knives are they're affordable. They work very well. They're not the prettiest contestants in the beauty pageant, I would say. But they do just daggone work. Let's start with the Eldris though. There is something very inconvenient about using this as your day-to-day knife if you forgot your pocket knife at home. It's that the carry method is just going to be slipping that in your pocket. Or you could get one that has a belt loop as well. But just this with the hard shell sheath and no attachment methods is about $35. So certainly affordable. 12C27. Doesn't set the world on fire, but it's fine stuff. And you got a nice little utility blade here. Plenty of girth in the handle too to do some real work. But not exactly what you would think of as a pocket knife generally. I say that, most people probably wouldn't. And the yellow here, certainly a little bit on the off side as well. It's not a bad yellow, it's just not quite normal, I would say. But the Eldris is a really cool knife. The Zancudo is also a really cool knife. And it's overlooked these days, but these are still about $33. You can get them with AUS 8 stainless steel, so it could sit in your glove box for a long time in the car without you having to worry too much about rust or anything like that. Stainless steels, keeping in mind, they stain less. They're not necessarily stain proof. but anyway, you take my point. The handle, while it may not win any beauty contests, is ergonomic as heck. I mean, it fits in my hand quite nicely. You got some finger guard protection. You got a frame lock, tip down or tip up carry for right-handers, and decent flicking action, even with washers in the pivot. And 33 bucks, did I mention? But not embarrassing enough, not compromised enough. And I use that term affectionately when it comes to the next knives. How about this? The Sword Peasant friction folder. 20 bucks, 3-inch carbon steel blade.
No fidget for you.
No fidget. It's punishment. No fidget. It's also carbon steel, so it may pick up some rust in your glove box. Good. That's punishment. That's what you get for leaving your real, quote unquote, real knife at home. And bright green, of course, because you definitely want to draw attention to yourself. When I say attention, I mean the scorn of your peers. Right? It is quite a comfortable handle though. And you do have a nice, usable blade. It's a real knife. Punishment enough for you though. Yeah, the rust could really get at you. I hope it does rust in your glove box. You sinner, you forgetting your other knife at home. How about the Opinel number 7? Available in orange. No real tip on this. That's punishment. You got to work around that. You're not going to be able to puncture quite so well. Good. You deserve it. That being said, many Opinels would make a decent, stash knife here and there. This particular scenario does bring up a, one kind of weak spot in the typical Opinel construction with the wood handles and unsupported pivots here. If you live in an exceptionally humid or wet environment, you could get some swelling at the pivot that makes the blade itself harder to open and close. Again, for the punishment aspect, that's a good thing. But Opinels are great knives. They're great slicers. This one is just not a great piercer. Hope you don't need to pierce. I got another Essie to take a look at, the Chirp. This one might be too useful too, or not enough of a punishment. 2.7-inch D2 blade. Semi-stainless, so you might pick up a little bit of rust. Actually, this is a stainless Opinel. I don't think they make the blunt-tipped ones in carbon steel. I don't remember. I guess an inconvenient part of the Chirp is it's not one-hand openable. So if you're typically carrying a one-hand openable Opinel, sorry. I had to say it because it entered my mind. If you are used to a one-hand opening knife, you're not going to get that with this. Still, it's actually a really good knife. We are fans of this, especially at 20 bucks. Be sure to get the bright yellow one, however. 2-position pocket clip, D2 blade, full flat grind, very useful. And it locks as well.
The penance is you have to sharpen it.
Yeah, the penance is you have to do what we did in our sharpening video, well, the shootout we did, where we used the Chirp and we tested 3 different sharpening methods to see which worked best. When you take this out of your glove box, you have to dull it on the concrete immediately and then sharpen it before you can use it. Good suggestion, Thomas. Let me make clear, I'm actually a fan of all of these knives. They all do have legitimate uses and are pretty good. I'm not going to recommend any actual junk knives to you here. Anyway, next up, the Buck Bantam. Not the shining star of Buck's lineup, but like the Zancudo from earlier, it still has its place. It's been around for a while. It's oft overlooked, but they're relatively affordable. This one's about 25 bucks in the bright orange camouflage pattern right here. Other flavors are available, but in the spirit of punishment, this is the one you have to get. 2 3/4 blade here. They've also got a 3-inch plus blade. I think it's like 3 1/4-ish. There's even a big one, like 3.6, also available in this camouflage pattern here. 420 HC steel, I believe that's still the case. Yep, USA construction as well. They're nice. No pocket clip on this one, which is a downside for you. Other versions do have pocket clips, however, which is the most punishment for you. Go for that one. All right, one more bright and colorful knife, the Cold Steel Finn Wolf. 3.5 inches, so it's a little bit bigger than your 3-ish inch range. And it's about $39, so a little more expensive, but a Scandi grind. I've got nothing against Scandi grinds. Let me put that out there right off the bat. But I think for daily use, they're less, suited than, a typical flat grind or hollow grind can be. These are exceptional on woodworking though. So it's going to be a little bit different than, most everyday carry knives. And, you might have to cut things, approach angles a little bit differently than you might have to otherwise. Maybe this is less a punishment, more a learning experience for you.
As all punishments are.
Good point again, Thomas.
That's what my dad said.
Oh, yeah. Did you believe him then? Mm-hmm. Sure. Why'd you look over your shoulder when you said that? AUS 8 stainless, the Triad lock. Super strong, super stable, super reliable. Other colors are available, but again, go for the most obnoxious looking one to you. This next one might be the most obnoxious for this selection, however. The TB Outdoor Bivouac. Yes, it's a knife and spoon and wine cutter and cork screw. It's also a knife with some stainless steel. It's like 24 bucks. Yeah, it's tempered stainless steel. I couldn't even tell you what it is. If this doesn't make you really sad that you left like your regular knife at home, I don't know what will. No pocket clip. In fact, pocket carry is discouraged because it comes with a sheath right here with mounting sprongs on the back that are just going to get in the way if you try to slip the whole thing in your pocket. That's the point in this case. That could be a lot of fun. I actually did have fun kind of thinking of these because, like I said, I do like all of these knives, generally speaking, so that's cool. So now that the jokey answers are finished, I do have a couple more like real answers, so to speak, for just like good backup knives in general. The Ontario Rat 1, I actually didn't bring one onto the table in front of me, but the Rat 1 remains just a phenomenal backup blade that you can stash all around, still relatively affordable. But on the subject of Ontario, the Camp Plus EDC, this is a phenomenal stick it somewhere and forget about it till you need it knife. First of all, the price. It's $14, and it's built better than a ton of $14 competition that I've ever seen, quite honestly. 3.4-inch blade with this low drooping clip point. 420 stainless steel, so very basic stuff. Again, for the needs you're looking for, that's okay. This is just to get you through the day till you get back to like the good stuff. And for $14, this is kind of awesome. Wire pocket clip, back lock, injection molded handles. It's not technically one hand opening, but you could kind of pinch it open. Just don't do that if your hands are cold and fingertips are going a little numb or anything like that. You want to make sure you're operating with full dexterity before you engage in that sort of thing. But as a get you through the day knife, for $14, I genuinely can't think of a better option that beats this on price. Even stuff that's a little more expensive, I'm not gonna lie, I would rather carry the Zancudo personally, but it is more than twice the price at this point. Just a little bit over twice. Well, yeah, it is. It's like, man, never mind.
Numbers.
Math. So this is two of these is like $28, and this is what, 32 and some change. Yeah, 33 bucks. Well, yeah. Anyway, the Camp Plus EDC though, great little beater knife. If you do want to spend a little bit more money and get something like a little, like truly better, I was talking about the Finn Wolf earlier with its Triad lock, super durable, super strong locking mechanism, very reliable. Check out, if you want something without the Scandi grind, the Mini Recon 1 from Cold Steel. Tonto spear point or clip point blades available, although their spear point is more of a drop point, in my opinion. Getting back a couple of weeks. These are like $48. You still got the Triad lock. You've got AUS 10 steel, so the steel's a step up from most of the stuff here on the table. In fact, I would say it is a step up from everything I've shown you so far. Not that any of those are necessarily bad if you use them in their appropriate circumstances, but AUS 10 is nice. A little bit more compact. You're at the 3-inch point. It's a little bit more tactical, even though it is compact. Just great knives, great set it and forget it knives as well. All right, now we're right into the lightning round for today. Jonathan Jerusik says, hey DCA, I have a 2-part question. Yes, that's 2 lightning round questions. First, I'm looking for a beginner fixed blade knife for my younger son who wants to learn bushcraft skills. What do you suggest for a 5 to 10-year-old? I'll answer that one first. Mora, which stands, in our opinion, for Mora over really anything. We talked about the Eldris before. Moras are a good backup knife in one of those types of contexts because in certain scenarios, they're a good primary knife. And this is a perfect instance where that's the case. But the model I would recommend is the basic in stainless steel. Yes, it's just called basic, that's fine. They're $16. You got a 3 5/8 inch blade of 12C27 stainless steel. It's thin enough to slice decently, but you still got that great Scandi grind for woodworking. And especially important, I think, for youngsters, a finger guard. Some folks might say, hey, let them learn to respect the tool with no finger guard. I get that too, but I like the finger guard in this case. It's very affordable. They're very well built, especially for the money. Come with a decent sheath as well. Could do a lot worse learning bushcraft stuff. Second part of your question. Second, looking for a sub $150 bushcraft fixed blade for myself. Around a 3.9 to 4.5 inch blade. Stainless steel would be nice, like 14C28N, and for grind, something that will do well for carving, building a fire, and basic food prep. What would you recommend? Thank you. So typically, bushcraft and Scandi grinds go together like peanut butter and jelly, in my opinion. But you did mention food prep, and here's where I diverge a little bit from like my bushcraft brothers out there. I'm not a huge fan of thicker Scandi grinds for food prep. Like an 1/8 inch is about the max I want to go. But I prefer even thinner. This Mora works pretty darn good because you've still got a thin enough blade. That being said, I'm going to show you the Joker Montero. These range in price from about $110 to $135, depending on which you can get. You can get them in Scandi grind or a full flat grind right now. Wood or micarta handles are available, and they've got that Sandvik 14C28N, which is great. It's a 0.14 thick blade, so it's thicker than I would like for food prep. So if you think you might do just the occasional cut on food, this might be fine. It's great on wood especially, but if you think you might be doing a little more food prep than, or enough food prep to warrant, I would recommend going with the full flat ground version right here. The Montero has a blade shape that is kind of kitcheny, but it's a great bushcrafting knife all around. 4.3 inch blade, robust, thick handles there for long woodworking sessions, which if you're doing bushcraft, you want to be doing that. And the quality is fantastic. They're made in Spain. The materials are good. The sheath is quite nice as well. As you can see, it comes with a dangler loop, and nice thick danger loop. Nice thick welts on the side. I wouldn't change a thing about what they do. Although maybe if they make a 3/32 thick Scandi version of that, I wouldn't hate it. All right, next question. Brandon Light. What's the advantages or disadvantages of something like a clip point blade with the tip below the center line of the knife blade and handle? So I think generally speaking, with any blade shape, whether it's clip point, drop point, reverse tanto, or whatever, the more the tip is below the center line, the easier it is to transfer force onto the tip. So, for piercing and especially on like a downward face, not necessarily like thrusting self-defense thing, but this is a perfect example. The Camp Plus right here. The tip is just a little bit below the center line of the blade, and as long as there's not too much belly, that's this curved portion at the front of the blade, as long as there's not too much of that in the way, you can really put some force down, push onto that tip effectively. The Eldris here is a perfect example of the opposite. With all that belly, the tip way up there, if I'm using the same angle, I'm not hitting the tip. So I have to bend my wrist more, and puts me more like off axis, so to speak. So it's a little bit harder to do that. If I flip that around, look how much easier that would be for that sort of thing. So generally speaking, that would be the advantage. Disadvantage,
less belly.
Well, not necessarily, but because you could have a low center line tip and a lot of belly, but things just cut a little bit differently. But I would say that's the advantage there for sure. Well, disadvantage. If you've got a skinning mission or skinning and hunting profile in mind, you want all that belly with a high centerline tip because you want that sweeping cut, less piercing. So yeah, it's a benefit and a drawback. It pierces better. but it also might pierce when you don't want it to. If you don't want
things.
That's what I should have said. Which brings us to our finalist question of the day, which is our most seriousest question of the day, don't you know? Which comes from Dominican Fire. What if you don't have any knives in your house yet, and you get a package and it's a knife? How do you open it? Two options. If you have access to a carcass splitter, you could simply use that to smash carefully through the packaging. But in lieu of that, I would say, get to know your neighbors, make some friends. Maybe they'll help you out. In fact, that's pretty good life advice in general, I would say. Yeah, community.
I would say in grinder.
This is possible too. There's that one where it says like, do not use blade to open knife, and someone's using an old DVD of the Blade movie to like try to open. You can try that if you have a copy laying around. Kids have DVDs these days anymore? Probably not. Anyway, that's all we got time for today, folks. Keep your questions coming. Keep your most seriousest questions coming as well. Drop them in the comments below. Beater knives. I should have said this earlier. Or not, it's a slightly different subject, actually. Backup knives. What are your favorite options for stashing in kits, for putting in places where if you don't have what you would prefer to have, you know something there is going to be reliable for you at quick access? Drop your favorite backup knives, and if they're punishment backup knives, even better. Let us know in the comments. If you want to get your hands on any of these items, check out the links in the description, which will take you to KnifeCenter.com. And while you're over there, don't forget about our long-running Knife Rewards program or our bevy of new payment options at checkout, including Sezzle if you want to break things up into payments. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, and that's Thomas behind the camera. We're signing off for now. See you next time.